I cannot believe this. This is ridiculous. Why is it that so many people want to control? I don't know why everyone wants to control everything. Hey, it's Monique. So I was just in the last video and I realized that I do actually need to make a separate video about the top five things that baby boomers and millennials, specifically Generation Z, Gen Z, have in common. It's warm. Yum. I am working on a crochet sweater pattern that I am making for myself here, and it's really easy. It's a series of 4 granny squares that I'm crocheting together, and it's to prepare for the brutal winter that is approaching us. But I have a little bit of a message to share with the YouTube and the rest of the internet about the 1, 2, 3 similarities, the things that I've seen that baby boomers and Gen Z have in common. I'm part of the garbage disposal generation, which is basically Generation Y. We're after Generation X and before Generation Z. And let me tell you, there's not a whole heck of a lot that we're doing. A lot of us live in our parents' basements. We have abortions. We're, addicted to drugs or alcohol. Like we're trash, basically garbage. I know that sounds really bad and maybe it's true, but it is actually the truth. But then there's Gen Z, and Gen Z, some are fortunate enough to have, Generation X parents who were raised by responsible baby boomers, or baby boomers who were responsible to raise them because they waited to have children until they were older in age, or maybe even something to the effect of they were adopted by baby boomers who afforded them the ability to establish really good values into them so that they might prosper. But as it turns out, the more I watch what's going on between in this world and the things that appeal to Generation Zers and Generation Z, and then also baby boomers, it's actually quite frightening to see how eerie the parallels are. So I've figured out 5 things that they have in common. Both generations have in common. So the baby boomer generation would be the generation of people that showed up after World War II. Most of these people are at the very least in their 70s. Some are in their 60s. But most of them are actually quite old. And a lot of them are actually parents to Generation X, which is a cool generation. I'm not going to kid you. These are the generations. This is the generation that made tattooing cool. This is the generation that made, that came to age with grunge culture and body piercings and, believe it or not, the Spice Girls. This is like literally a generation of people, and they're all in their 50s. All of the Generation X people are approaching 50 if they're not in their 50s already. But baby boomers and Generation Zers have a lot in common, and a lot of Gen Zers are the children of Gen Xers, depending on how responsible those Gen Xers are. Some Gen Zers are the product of the baby boomer generation because they were raised by baby boomers, or just kind of shepherded by baby boomers because their Generation X parents were strung out on drugs or whatever, or just decided that grandma and granddad should take care of baby, or worse yet, mom and dad who are Gen Xers, or in some cases possibly even Gen Y, like myself, pregnant teenagers, if you will, taking care of, baby and child, or, whatever. Anyway, so it's interesting. One of the things that baby boomers do that is toxic. And one of the things that Gen Zers do that is toxic is the use of social media. And when I say that, baby boomers have Facebook and Gen Zers have TikTok. Gen Zers have Instagram. Gen Zers have YouTube. On top of that, baby boomers also have YouTube. So the use of social media, and I've been saying this for years and years and years to my personal friends or to people that I've had the opportunity to talk about these things with, social media is pathological narcissism. So when something goes viral, someone was narcissistic enough to make it go viral, which is not a huge deal. Sometimes it's not even really narcissism that causes something to go viral. But more often than not, someone's like, I'm going to do this thing on the camera and it's going to go viral. A good example would be like some of the popular trending tunes that we hear on TikTok. And then also like these different challenges and even things like, back in the day, and I mean back in the day like 4 years ago, not back in the day like 10 years ago, someone doing something on the internet to get views that goes viral and then everyone else does that. So influencing is a very good part of pathological narcissism. What's crazy about this particular thing that I'm describing is that for many baby boomers and many Gen Zers, it actually is the hallmark of being valuable in this world, which I find I don't even know why this needs to be. I'm sorry, I need to take a shot. I like Grey Duck. Grey Duck is this really fabulous value-oriented vodka that's distilled in the upper Midwest, and it's from corn. It's delicious. I have not been paid to share Grey Duck with you, but you can find Grey Duck at most liquor stores in the United States and Total Wine and More, which I would recommend if you like vodka. If you don't like vodka, then obviously you probably should choose something. All right, so what does drinking vodka have to do with the topic of this video? I can't deal with Gen Z, and which happens to be 10 years younger than I am. And baby boomers, I promise you, are the reason for global warming and climate change. I'm not lying to you. I'm not lying to you at all. I like Generation X. Generation X is like, we know how to reduce, reuse, and recycle. We're definitely about the eco, but some of us are parents and we're not dog parents. We actually have like real biological children that we have to take care of. Like, I'm not kidding. We're not cat mom and cat dad. We have like real kids that go to school and they have to eat food every day. And oh my God. So like I said, I called myself part of the garbage disposal generation. I was born in 1985. That means I'm 48 years of age as of today. In 2025, I will be 40. And so I have the benefit and the option of being the kid sister of Generation X and the older sister of Generation Z, as someone who's been coined as Generation Y, which is a part of the millennial generation, whatever the hell that means. Basically what that means is the people who came of age in the year 2000. People who were alive in 2000 are technically part of the millennial thing that we know. And let me tell you, the Y2K was not a huge deal. The new millennium wasn't a huge deal. But it is actually pretty remarkable to think about it. It's like you go from being in one millennium to another millennium. And so here we are in the 24th year in the new millennium. And anyone that was born in the year 2000 is actually a legal adult and they can buy things like Grey Duck. So one of the things that I think about, from a Generation X perspective is the advent or the oncoming of something called cable TV. What's cable TV? Well, cable TV is a service that you subscribe to from the cable company, and it's basically you pay a monthly premium for extra TV channels. I know that sounds really insane, especially in the age of streaming where you can have pretty much anything that you'd want to watch forever and ever, for, almost free basically. But that's not how cable TV works. That's not how cable TV works. And so anyone who's a Generation Xer knows the excitement of your parents announcing that you're getting cable TV. Oh my gosh. Cable TV? What do you mean cable? We're getting cable? Oh my, are you kidding me? Cable? Yes, Lord. Oh my God. I have the best parents. I'm getting cable. Here's where it gets even weirder. Because cable TV is a big deal for people, when they were getting the cable TV. Like, you want cable TV in your household. That is definitely, absolutely, positively, you've made it with cable TV in your household. But that's a Generation X thing. And it's kind of a Generation Y thing if you're a middle child. I'm the eldest, so I was fortunate enough to, be the one that's like, okay, cable TV is just normal, because that's just how our lifestyles are in this age, in the mid 90s. Like, that was just how that was. But, some people, some of the Generation Xers got cable TV in the 1980s. Some of the Generation Xers got cable TV in the in the early 90s. As a millennial, a millennial who was born in 1985, who is not quite Gen X, but would be considered Gen Y. To compare that to Gen Z got cable internet, and they got cable internet probably somewhere after year 2000, because most of Gen Y was born after the year 2000. Cable internet afforded things that is the next thing that baby boomers and Generation Y have in common, which is quite possibly one of the most annoying things in history. I'm not lying to you about this. It is the consumption of cheap ass bullshit purchased on the internet. So when I was a teenager, we had the option to buy things online. We really did. eBay was there. We had, Amazon even, Target and Walmart. I think they had websites where you could buy things. But here we are, fast forward. Amazon is a bloated Chinese marketplace that happens to be American. Chinese American marketplace, which, to be honest with you and transparent, yes, I do use Amazon as a service. I like buying things on Amazon that I can't find elsewhere. Amazon is a fabulous platform to buy international items. But I say these things, or I say this thing that I say this way specifically to highlight Amazon as a place to get things from other areas of the planet that are local to other areas of the planet, not things that are supposed to be consumed globally. And so a good example would be a Japanese tea tin versus boring dime a dozen coffee mugs, if that makes sense. And I hope that it does. I don't know if it will, but let's find out. Anyway, baby boomers are so good at using Amazon. Like, I don't know if there are any baby boomers that don't have Amazon Prime memberships. They seem like they do. And they use Amazon to buy cheap ass bullshit. Like, really? Do you actually need to buy 16 dog sweaters for your Great Dane or your Chihuahua or your Poodle from Amazon. Oh, you needed toilet paper for your recreational vehicle, your RV. Oh my, you've got to be kidding me. And so what's really nuts about that is that, you know, Generation Z is doing the same thing. They're buying all this cheap ass bullshit, but they're buying things like clothing and accessories. So you've got Shein and, they're using Temu and Amazon. And you've got all this cheap ass garbage that people are buying. And I'm from a generation where, you know what, we actually did have to send to Chinese e-commerce websites because the Chinese are very shrewd in business. And I'm not mad about that. They should be. Everyone's really shrewd in business if we're going to be honest. And so, you would have to wait the 3-4 weeks for things. But now because of things like Amazon and Temu, you can get things in like 2 weeks. And that's the long wait. Sometimes it's just 2 hours or 2 days worth of waiting to get the instant thing that you want. And the thing about Gen Zers is that Gen Zers are probably parts of households where Amazon Prime is a thing. Nobody needs a membership for Temu. No one needs a membership for Shein. But if you choose to pay for a membership to either of those platforms, you get additional perks and benefits, which makes, people richer. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is kind of messy, which I think, and it leads to the next, what the hell is going on here? Hold on. Anyway, I just stopped for a second. There's messes everywhere. I don't know what's causing these. But the next thing that baby boomers and Gen Zers have in common is a lack of patience. They do not have any patience. So, one of the things that's kind of cool that I remember from when I was a kid is that when we would watch TV and media, whether or not we had cable, because this applied to cable and network TV, whether or not you had it, was you would have to wait for a new episode of the show that you thought was interesting. So, for example, The Simpsons is an enormously popular show to this very second. Like, I still watch The Simpsons. I have access to The Simpsons on the internet via streaming, via network TV, and I also, just in case there's an emergency, I have The Simpsons on DVD also. So I'm never without The Simpsons if I need The Simpsons. But having said that, there was a period of time where you would only get one dosage of The Simpsons per week, and it would happen on Sunday, and you would have to wait until the next Sunday to get more Simpsons. There was not Simpsons on the internet for you to stream. There was not Simpsons for you to watch on DVD. It was just like you had to wait for the next episode of The Simpsons. Baby boomers don't have to worry about that anymore. It's easier for them now if they want to watch The Simpsons to just dial into Hulu, and then ta-da, there's all of The Simpsons for like $18 per month, and every baby boomer's just like, this is totally worth it, even though The Simpsons is like, network TV for the longest. And Gen Z is the same way. So if Gen Z wants to watch The Simpsons in any language, it could be Spanish, French, English. The Gen Z can watch The Simpsons in 3 seconds via Hulu or Disney Plus or even YouTube in like 3 different languages, possibly more languages. And so they don't actually have to wait a full 7 days for the next episode of The Simpsons like we had to when I was a kid, and when, baby boomers were actually athletic and fit and not, old people. And sorry about that. I had to laugh way too hard about that because, yep, baby boomers are old people, which is fine, that's the thing. But as I was saying, like there's a very common lack of patience between that baby boomers and Gen Z have. Like, everything is 2-day delivery, everything is DoorDash, everything is streaming now. And that's not a huge deal. It's not really that big of a deal, but when cultivating patience, which a lot of people believe is a virtue, being able to get something instantly that you want instantly is a challenge for patience. So It makes you very impatient. I think it's also one of those things that causes people to not be able to pay attention. I think there are a lot of baby boomers or people who are maybe the younger end of baby boomers who would consider themselves ADHD or unable to focus on something simply because, the today allows you to get things that took time previously for you to get. So instead of waiting an entire week for a new episode, you can just, get another episode of the same show that you just started watching in a second, which is a bit toxic. I think another thing that baby boomers and Gen Zers have in common is a tendency to spend money What the hell? To spend money stupidly. So I'm going to say this one more time here very slowly while I crochet this one stitch. Baby boomers and Gen Zers have a tendency to spend money stupidly. What does that mean even? So the number 4 thing that I found that Generation Z and baby boomers have in common are their stupid spending habits. Would be not even habits, the way that they spend money. Generation X or Generation Z and baby boomers have a tendency to spend money in ways that are absolutely mind-boggling. Like, why are you spending money on something so stupid? Or why are you buying so much of something that's stupidly? Like, why are you doing that? And I think part of that has to do with the fact that, particularly here in the West, this doesn't apply to anywhere really. This entire video doesn't apply to anybody outside of a first world country. That should probably be pretty obvious by now. But if my yarn is all comfy, I'm trying to crochet here. Anyway, is that baby boomers and Gen Zers have a tendency to spend money in stupid ways. So a good example would be buying things that, they're not going to need, or buying things that really serve no practical purpose. So Gen Zers will buy things that, just are not that important. And what's really crazy about Gen Zers is that they'll spend a lot of money on things that aren't important, like baby boomers. A good example of this would be like, a pair of really expensive statusy shoes or a really expensive statusy coat that, Gen Z will spend, $1,000 on because, they put it on their first credit card and they'll end up racking up credit card debt for these stupid things. And baby boomers are the exact same way. They'll just, they have the added benefit of having established credit and old credit history because they're old people. So they can do things like buy, 40-foot luxury recreational vehicles, RVs, that they can then move into and live in full time, which is strange to me. But I understand why people do it. They want to, see things, and it kills two birds with one stone. But I think that's kind of stupid. I think it's better to have the 40-foot RV, luxury RV, and a house that's paid for. But that's me being judgmental and digressing. There's all this other stuff too, like things like buy now, pay later. So we've got like Zip or Klarna or whatever kind of buy now, pay later services that Gen Z has access to. And they, might rack up debt that could cause them financial ruin, later on in life. Or it can also just be used on Temu to buy 8,000, pairs of socks that have $100 bills printed on them. I don't know why. What the Jesus? I have no idea why anyone would choose that, but that's one of those things that I've noticed that Gen Y and baby boomers have in common. They spend money in ways that are stupid. I'm not saying that these ways are unwise, they're just stupid. Like, I don't know why you would need to spend so much money on something so stupid, so meaningless, so vain, or I don't know why you would choose to spend that much money on something that, you have a perfectly good, stable version of. Like, why do you do that? Monthly services, subscription services are a good example of ways that baby boomers and Gen Zers spend money foolishly. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with subscription services, but when you have 8,000 of them and it costs you $900 per month and you're constantly complaining about how you're broke, maybe you should reconsider your subscription services. That's just what I think. The other thing too is, baby boomers who have spend all this money on these things. Like, you have 42 different streaming network services, and the reason you have all these different streaming TV services is because cable's too expensive. But if you add up, how much it costs for Netflix, Hulu, Paramount Plus, HBO Plus, it's gonna cost you probably about the same amount of money, if not more, than it would for you to just get cable. What the hell? Why? What? And finally, one of the things that I see that baby boomers and Gen Zers have in common is that they will not be able to purchase or afford a home, to buy a home, or they will not be able to properly retire without having to work. And that's frustrating to me. Generation Xers have all been very good at putting money away or investing in things so that they don't have to actually work anymore. Baby boomers have not necessarily been as great at this unless they were yuppies in the 80s. And even then, that's not a guarantee either. If you move to the Philippines and you marry someone that's half your age, goodbye retirement fund. That's just one thing that I'm saying there. But the inability to afford a home. So you might be able to put a down payment on that home after saving, but can you continue to afford that home? I don't know if baby boomers have figured that out, and the ones that have figured it out a long time ago when things weren't quite as how do I say this? I feel like most baby boomers that own their homes didn't buy their homes to compete with other people, and they didn't buy them as investment properties. The other thing too is that there's a chance that somebody overspent on the home that they purchased. So maybe instead of, a 6-bedroom mansion or a 10-bedroom mansion, what you needed to purchase for your family was just a simple 3-bedroom rambler for a certain amount of money instead of something extra big. And then you have Gen Zers who are just like, well, they're never actually going to be able to afford a house, but there are many Gen Zers who are like, well, I can live in my parents' house, who did the right thing, which was buy a 3-bedroom house for their, 4 kids. And then once those kids were adults, and they moved out, those kids have a place to live and they're stable in their housing. But the baby boomer parents or the Gen X parents have this home that is a resource that their Gen Z children can dwell in. And I would even go as far as to say Gen Z grandchildren to dwell in, which isn't a bad thing, but it still means that Gen Zers probably aren't going to be able to purchase homes without becoming zillionaires first. And when I say zillionaires, I mean people who, have successfully made like $1 million doing something like writing books on Amazon or, door dashing. I would very much actually love to find out who is the person to make $1 million door dashing first. And how much it actually costs that individual to make $1 million door dashing. I suspect in my projection, and I'm digressing right now, I'm sorry, is that it's impossible to make $1 million door dashing without a lot of help and without an enormous amount of expense. So you can make $1 million door dashing, but the amount that it is going to cost you is not worth trying to make $1 million door dashing, if that makes any sense. I hope that makes sense. And finally, the last little bit that I have here in regards to baby boomers versus Gen Z is the retirement thing. There are a lot of Gen Zers who will not get to retire. They are going to have to continue working into old age, which is fine. That's what things like, juice cleansing and celery juicing celery juice and vegetarian diets and exercising and taking supplements is for, to keep you extra young and healthy and strong for longer, because you're going to have to work for longer, and so you don't have to deal with the degenerative diseases that baby boomers have to deal with, which is a bonus for being a Gen Zer. However, baby boomers there's still a bunch of baby boomers who are ultra poor and sometimes too sick to work, so they have to rely on their family members to supplement their income or take care of them because they can't work to support themselves, even though they actually do still need to because they just don't make enough money. Or in some cases they, are fully retired, but they're sick. And then they have to deal with their retirement years, with like cancer treatments. Like, that's no way to live. So, Jesus Christ is Lord. And I think it's really important for us to really take into consideration, what we need to do to live long lives, to live holy lives, to live lives that are abundant, life in the full, if you will. That's the way that Christ Jesus taught me that life is the way that it should be. It's just interesting to be part of an almost forgotten about generation. I would be considered Generation Y. Originally it was WHY, as in the word why, like, why is this way? And then eventually they just kind of cut the W and the H part off and just left it to be Y after X and before Z. And so we are the garbage disposal generation. A lot of us live in our parents' basements. I don't know if you can hear the grinding upstairs, but that would be my mother in her office. She is a young baby boomer. We're in our parents' basements. If we're single, if we're not single, we live with our spouses, which is cool. That's not a bad thing. If we can find them using something other than Tinder, that's even better. But a lot of us have to find people using Tinder, which is a challenge for lots of us in so many ways. I don't even know where to begin with that. I'm digressing. I'm not even kidding you. This is ridiculous. I have to take a sip of this. Something that I'm really enjoying right now is Spindrift Spiked. It's delicious. No, I'm not being paid. I shouldn't have to tell you that, but it really is very delicious. I like Spindrift, the water on its own, but when I found out that Spindrift decided to make a seltzer, I was just like, I need it. So anyway, I'm Monique. Thanks for listening. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if this is something that you find interesting. These are just my political thoughts that I want to share with you. Have a great week.